welcome everyone. I'm your host, Tammie Pike from Inspired Conversations, and today I have an amazing special guest, Anna Carson from Damara Wellbeing Kinesiology. Welcome, Anna, and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Anna is a kinesiologist and a mum to two beautiful children. Anna discovered kinesiology whilst pregnant with her second child and embarked on a healing journey around her first birth, which had been traumatic. Through the success of using kinesiology to reconnect with her body, her voice, and her ability to birth, Anna understood the transformative power of this modality to aid people to recuperate and to live their life to their full potential. This then spurred Anna to want to help others with this natural healing modality. Anna is now helping women to maintain or reconnect to their voice, power, and sense of self through birth and into motherhood and beyond. To say that what you do is amazing is an understatement, because I think, I have seen you a lot and I have actually worked with you in different groups, and I know you have such a passion for helping women and doing something that we naturally do but have lost the confidence to do. So you're amazing. And I just would like to ask, Anna, how did you get to wanting to be a kinesiologist?
Well, you touched on it slightly at the beginning. The first part was really, like I said, when I was pregnant with my second, I knew I'd had a really difficult birth with my daughter. And I just knew that when I walked into the hospital, that I couldn't do the same thing again. And so I started, looking for a private midwife and a doula. But I also needed to heal my own wounds. I had so much trauma, so much anxiety and fear around it. And I, like you said, I completely disconnected from my actual ability to birth. So that was where I found kinesiology. And I was really able to start to reconnect into that. And be able to heal some of the trauma which was held, it's held in my body, it was held in my blood. But also to start to find my voice, and start to really go, do you know what, this is what I want, this is what I need, and I'm going to find it. And that was certainly one of the main things that I'd lost during the first birth, was just feeling completely disempowered and not listened to. So that was a big part of it. And then, I was able to have a beautiful home birth in the water. It was just, it was just divine. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I thought, wow, how amazing would it be for other women to know that this is possible, and also to experience it, if that's what they want. So yes, that's kind of, I think that's where my passion for birth really comes from, because I've experienced both. I've experienced a really difficult one, and then this beautiful one, which I just felt amazing the whole way through. Like I would do it, the next day I'd say, I'd do it in a second again. Like I had no problems with it. So I was incredibly fortunate to have, an amazing kinesiologist to support me through that. And then I think that was one part where your birth really became, so my passion, I guess. But the kinesiology, I was still kind of, it had worked amazing for me. But then what happened was, when my son, he was only 6 weeks, and he ended up having a really high temperature, and we went into a hospital because obviously, at 6 weeks having a temperature of 40 is not ideal. And they wanted to test him for meningitis, and he had a lumbar puncture. And they didn't find it. Ended up being a UTI, a urinary tract infection. We had the antibiotics and everything, but then after it cleared up, they wanted to put him on long-term antibiotics and do loads of tests to find out why he'd had this. And I just didn't want to go down that route. And so I took him back to my kinesiologist and said, okay, so what's going on? And we discovered, I knew that this had happened, but a week earlier, he'd actually fallen off the sofa. A lot of mummy girl there. But he'd fallen off the sofa, and obviously his body had gone into real shock. And his way of dealing with that was picking up an inherited pattern that had come through my husband's line, an inherited pattern of dealing with shock. And he had inflamed his urethra as a way of dealing with the shock. And she was able to clear that. And so that he no longer uses that as his shock response. And in that, it was that where I suddenly went, oh my goodness, I've changed his life, because I could see that if we'd gone down the traditional route or the allopathic route, we'd have had long-term antibiotics. Every time he'd gone into a shock, he'd have had a UTI, we'd have had tests which would have shown nothing. I could see how that could have played out. And instead, we were able to clear it, shift on, and he's never had a UTI ever since. And for me, that was the clincher, where I literally came home to my husband and I went, we either spend a fortune going to see a kinesiologist all the time, or I study it. And that was it. Because I could just see, it was just a really amazing example of how every physical symptom that we have has an underlying emotional or mental or problem behind it. And it's a symptom of the body saying, look, there's something wrong, I can't deal with it, here's the physical symptom as a kind of message. And of course, allopathic medicine really suppresses that, and so we don't listen and we don't start to investigate. And that's where and so the body's like, well, you've just taken away my message route, I'm going to have to find another one, and so you get another physical symptom. And so that really was such a kind of a huge, just wow, I couldn't have got a bigger example of the impact that it can have to really clear from the root cause instead of looking at the symptoms. So that was a rather long-winded,
then we understand your passion and why you do what you do. It's not a whim, it's something that you are really connected to and believe a whole 100% in your body that it works, and you walk your talk. I think that's a difference with someone who just goes out and spruiks something and doesn't use it in their life, to someone who actually lives and breathes it and does it. You know what I mean? Who has that connection, who has had it work. And kinesiology for me, I love it. I use it in my family. Again, I had something very similar with my daughter, with the whole UTI in hospital, all that kind of stuff, as you know. And, kinesiology helped her heal as well. And I think it's understated, or not as people aren't aware as how much it can actually heal a person. And again, we had the option of going mainstream or alternative. And I know if we had gone mainstream, conventional, we wouldn't have a healthy, shining baby like we do now. Like, she's 3 and she's so healthy and happy, and she loves going to her kinesiologist, and finds it such a magical experience, because they innately know that it's so good for them. It's a phenomenal story that you've shared. So I guess now, you've shared your passion, and you really now share your services with women as well, don't you? What is it that your services provide?
Yeah, so really, I do work with children quite a lot, just because I'm working with mums. Often they bring their children, but with women, I think it started off as really wanting to help women around birth. So whether it was preparing for birth, and so helping, whether it's physical symptoms, so again, morning sickness, sore back, all of these I can't say it just now, gestational diabetes, all these sorts of things, again, physical symptoms, so we can start to look, okay, so why are you getting these symptoms? So helping women from that point of view, and also around fears and anxieties that they have around going into labour, about becoming a parent, all those sorts of things. So that was one element. And then also was around healing birth trauma was another kind of element that I was really helping women with. So but now they're kind of merging, to be honest, now, where I had them as two quite separate services, whereas now it's merging, and I see my role now as really helping women to maintain or reconnect, it depends where they are on their journey, because what often happens in birth is we don't find our voice. We become disempowered within birth. But that can really impact on how we are, going into motherhood. And also, so many of us, and I, me included, get so lost in motherhood. It becomes such, all-encompassing, which it has to in a lot of ways. It has to. But then suddenly, as the children, as our children start to get a little bit older, it's just like, okay, so I've got a little bit of space now, but who am I? What do I like to do? What's my passion? What's my needs? What's my wants? And often women have really disconnected with that, so even that sense of self, because they've become so immersed in motherhood. And so, what I see in my role is really helping women through that whole transition. So whether, wherever they are on the journey, whether it's, being pregnant now and helping them through that and maintaining their voice and their power and their sense of self through birth, or whether it's afterwards, when they've already had their children and they're suddenly going, okay, I'm not quite sure who I am, because so much growth has happened. We change so considerably after we've had children. Some of us have spiritual awakenings, but our whole perspective on life has changed, in that time. What once was a priority is no longer a priority. It's shifted, but often it's almost like it feels like I kind of helping women to recalibrate themselves, if you know what I mean, through this massive period of growth, and just saying, okay, so let's bring, the wonderful parts of who you were, plus all the growth, and let's calibrate it so we can reconnect to you and what you now want to do with your life and moving forward. So that's where I see kind of my role, and that's the women that have been coming to me, of just having lost themselves, I guess, a little bit, and really needing to bring themselves together to then find their purpose, their joy, their what it is that stirs their soul now.
And it's amazing because you are there for the whole journey. You can be there for the whole journey, and they can have you as their support network, because as mums and as a woman becoming a mum, we have this stigma that we have to just do it. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be perfect at it. We have to not complain about it. And if we complain about anything or say we aren't coping or whatever, we're seeing less than, and we think that we're failing, even when just pregnant. If we say we're sick all the time, we feel that we're failing as a woman already. And have a safe space that they can have someone who can nurture them and help their emotions and to balance and to find that connection to self is so important, and especially after having a baby, even more so. So what you provide is this capsule and container of complete support and love on the most deepest level that you can go, isn't it? Because you can really go in.
And that's what and that's what I hope to be able to provide, is exactly that. It feels such an important transition for all of us, from that kind of maiden, single person, into motherhood, but like you say, to be able to maintain ourselves and all, and like you say, have that space to really explore all the emotions and everything that's going on, because it challenges us in so many ways. So if we can, and because also motherhood brings up so much of our own stuff. I know, certainly from my point of view, my goodness, I've been on the biggest healing plus learning journey since being a mom. And so to have to have that somebody to support you through that, as you go through it, and the different challenges that we have, but the main thing for me is to really help women to stay true to themselves, and to really stay connected to themselves.
So how do you do that using kinesiology then? And what is kinesiology, so everyone can understand what it is, how it can help, and what you supply or do in your services?
So really, I mean, kinesiology is about getting to the root cause of, whether it's emotional problems, emotional outbursts, or, whatever emotions that are coming up for you, or physical symptoms, or behavior patterns, thought patterns, all those things that are limiting, I guess, for us. And really seeing, okay, so where have they come from? And what kinesiology is really about, I see myself as kind of being like a detective here. It's piecing the puzzle, because our body has an innate ability to heal. If we cut ourselves or whatever, we don't have to look at it to be able to heal. Our body will just do it. And that's the same with emotional stuff, or and trauma and stuff. But what happens is, if the subconscious can't understand the whole picture, I guess, or hasn't got the energy, or hasn't got the resources to piece the whole puzzle together, then it kind of ends up going, okay, so I'm not quite sure what happened in there. I don't really understand it. And so it stores it in a kind of unresolved file. That's how I like to see it. We have an unresolved file of all this stuff that's, has happened to us. We're not quite sure on, how to heal from it, I guess. But what happens is, to be able to keep this suppressed, it takes energy. And then, when we're pregnant, or when we're a mother and we're exhausted and sleep deprived and everything else, we don't have so much energy, or as we get older, we don't have so much energy to keep all of this stuff suppressed. And that's when physical symptoms come up, or that's when, more and more emotions are coming out, or whatever, because we just don't have the energy to keep all of this suppressed. And so my job is really to start to unravel some of this stuff and piece it all together. So to take whatever's in there, and the kinesiology is amazing, because it works at the level that the client is ready to work at. So some people come in and we might just start scraping the surface of stuff, because that's all they're ready for, and that's absolutely fine. And other people want to delve deep straight away, and we'll also work at that. But it's purely the client always leads the session, and that's why I love the kinesiology, because you can't go deeper than anybody's ready to. It really is about that. And so it's about piecing the puzzle together. And it's not excuse me, it's not about what happened per se. It's about the meaning that we put to it. It's the decisions that we've made. Those are the important bits to piece together. So 5 people could experience the same event, but we all come away with different reactions to it. And a lot of that is to do with what we've previously had happen in our lives, or past life stuff, or inherited things. All of that also comes into it. But it's the meaning that we put to it, and the belief system that we've put around it, that's the important thing. And so it might be, if something has happened to us that's traumatic, we might believe, okay, so love is pain, and that might be a decision that we've made. And until we get to that decision and go, okay, so, and the subconscious can understand, okay, so that's why I made that decision, then we can start to shift it. Because that immediately, if love equals pain, that immediately becomes a huge limitation to how we live our life. If we believe that, then not only are we not going to show love fully, we're also not going to accept love fully. But if we can remove that belief system by piecing that whole puzzle together, then the subconscious goes, okay, yeah, I understand. That's why I made that decision, but actually I don't need to. I can let that go. So like I said, I feel like I'm a detective, and so we piece the whole puzzle together, and then at the end, usually what happens in my form of kinesiology, because obviously there's lots of different types, but in my form of kinesiology, we do eye trackings, and the eye trackings are really about bringing the different brain functions into a certain order to allow the healing. So some might be around physical health, some might be around kind of past mastery, about really bringing your personal power from the past of what's happened, and instead of bringing the limiting beliefs, it's bringing your power and your strength from them. So there's all this, I think I've got about 25 different eye trackings that we use, and that's really creating a new neural pathway And so how I see it is almost like having a road, and it's a road that you've always gone along, and this is, it's familiar to you, and it's served you for a long time, and that's your pattern, whether it's a physical pattern or a belief, or a thought pattern, and it's what you do, when something goes wrong, that's the path you go down. And how I see it is kinesiology puts a roundabout in there, and it puts another road. And so we never take away the old road, but what we do is we put a new neural pathway in. And we take you, that the eye tracking kind of takes you down that new neural pathway. And so every time you come to that junction, you're going, okay, I could go down the old road, and it's very familiar, and I know it, but it's not actually that good for me. Or we can go down the new one, and I know it's faster, and I know it's better, and it's a lot more, it's a lot more beneficial for me. And so more and more often you'll go down that new neural pathway.
It's a really amazing way, because the thing is, it helps with your physical, emotional, spiritual, it does all three layers, and like you said, depending on what you're focusing on. And I know from myself, from personal experience, especially with my kids, like when I've had things that I can't understand what's going on, I've taken them to my emotional kinesiologist, and she's able to pinpoint, without me saying anything, things that are triggering my children in certain ways, and why it's happening, getting to the deep spot. And it could be a physical response that they're having, emotional, or even like on a soul level response that's come from, pattern. And that's what I think I love so much about kinesiology, is that it just doesn't work. It's not about, what is it? Some things you can't really see the results of, but in kids, they don't lie, and you see the changes happen before your eyes.
And that was like I said, that was really how I got into it, is by seeing with my children, and the huge impact that it had on them, and even just with the relationships. We worked on siblings, and when my son was born, obviously my daughter found it very difficult, because as first children do, their world has suddenly changed, and so to take away some of that pain, I thought, and heal some of that pain for her, and to be able to then see their relationship blossoming, it's amazing. Like, what better gift, to be able to give your child or your family, is to help to maintain the dynamics. And it's phenomenal, and it is. I love it. I absolutely love it, and it's limitless. That's the other thing, because depending on your references and stuff, the deeper and the more understanding you have of the human psyche and the spiritual elements, that all can also come into it. It all adds into it, and that's what I love.
What I also found too is that it's empowered me as a mother as well, using an alternative therapy, that I'm not giving medication to my kids for something that's caused by an emotional block or an emotional reaction. And I just want to share one thing, because I want people to know how powerful kinesiology is, especially what you do as well. But for instance, a behavioural issue my daughter had was, she's at school, she had an issue. She homeschools now, but something had caused her to shut off I think it was the right side of her brain, which shut off her spleen and liver, which caused her to have white stools. Like, this is a physical reaction because of emotional issue. Anyway, because I feel so empowered with my children and their health through using kinesiology and, researching and doing my own growth in that area. Instead of taking to a doctor, which the most likely outcome would be saying she needs tests for, liver failure, cancer, because it was 2 weeks that it was going on, and I thought it was just something she ate. And my first protocol was going to a kinesiologist. Anyway, he looked at her and he said, oh, yes, just she switched off this. He worked on it all. And within a day, she was back to normal.
It's amazing, isn't it?
People, I think, especially to have access to someone like you, who is there for the whole journey, who is there to help them through, the pregnancy to birthing, to having a child, to have someone, a holistic alternative therapist who can help you with these things, is amazing. Like, I'm not saying not to go to doctors or whatever, but it's knowing
Exactly.
you know what I mean, and being discerning and having that empowerment to choose. And when you have someone who you feel safe to do that with, you know, it's you're sort of limitless in where you can go with this, in healing yourself and your family, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, completely. It really, and it completely changes your perspective on, you know, how your kids are and what they're experiencing, and you know, really, for me, it's really grounded me in really understanding them as whole human beings. You know, because sometimes people even, you know, kind of forget for some reason when kids are, especially when kids are really young, that they, you know, okay, they maybe don't have words, but they still experience life exactly the same as we do you know? And they still experience trauma, or they still experience hurt, or, you know, whatever. And although they can't express it, it'll often come out, you know, physical or whatever. And so to be able to really give them that, the full appreciation of a full, you know, a full human being, you know, and know that they experience all of this, and that it's important for us to really nurture every side of them. And yeah, I think, you know, parenthood and the way we parent is changing, I think, in a lot of ways, because we are seeing that. We know that they're incredibly, you know, special kids that are coming through, and they're here for some very deep learning, you know, and teaching, but the more that we can support them in this human life as well, you know, there's those kind of two-way thing, I guess. But it's certainly changed my perspective on how I view and parent my kids, and see their physical, you know, and their emotional behaviours, because you know, and knowing that it's not just this, there's so many stuff behind it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I love, because you know, I can see and feel your passion, and your knowledge and wisdom about this is so deep. And I would love for you to share how people can find you and the services you provide.
Yeah, but at the moment, I actually just have my Facebook page. I'm trying to write my website. It's I did have one, but it just didn't reflect what I do. So it's in the process of being written. But my Facebook page is Damara Wellbeing Kinesiology, so you can find me on that. And yeah, I mean, I offer Prepare to Birth packages, which is a series of kinesiology sessions, which are really helping women, you know, when they're pregnant, to really prepare for birth. And it also links in with doing a session on baby in utero, which is a gorgeous thing to do, because you can really help, you know, often kids, you know, as they're coming through, have some fears or some, you know, things that are maybe blocking their way for coming in. So to be able to shift that for them, even in utero, is amazing. So yes, I do a Prepare for Birth package. And yeah, and then other than that, we do sessions, you know, as people wish. So usually we start off with an hour and a half session, and then we can go on to either 90-minute or 60 minutes after that. But yeah.
Wonderful. I wish I was having a baby again, just so I could experience it with you.
It is a gorgeous thing. I had it when I was pregnant, and she did a session on my son in utero, and it was just the most beautiful thing to connect in that way. And I just had this huge surge of just knowing him. You know, I could really sense his essence. And so to be able to now be able to give that to somebody else, I just feel so blessed to be able to do that. So yeah.
And to help them through, you know, to know that their body can do it. And I know so many mums who've had emergency Caesars for reasons that weren't really, you know, that were anyway. But, you know, to then have, you know, have this that can help them really learn to trust their body and their voice again, and to know that this is what they're made to do. So I just, the world's so lucky to have you as a woman to empower other women, and, you know, to be the role model and to hold space for these women who are seeking a different way of being in themselves, and to really being empowered with their bodies as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Anna, and I love everything that you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to talk my talk.
It's awesome. So again, if you're wanting to find Anna, we will put the links up where we air this, and it's done.
And I'll write my website soon, I promise.
Yeah, Damara Wellbeing Kinesiology, and we hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Anna.